Have you ever opened the door to someone and realized too late that the question they asked revealed intentions far worse than they seemed? These are real horror stories from people who face intruders who tested their defenses, studied their routines, and waited for the perfect moment to attack. A 12-year-old boy home alone who opened the door to a pizza delivery driver asking the wrong questions. A teenager in an isolated house who saw a man smiling through the glass with knife in hand, not trying to enter, just watching. A group in a rented cabin who woke to a pale face pressed against the window at 4 a.m. Liam realized the delivery driver had mapped his vulnerability when he returned asking to use the phone and then entered through the back door. Evan spent months hearing metallic tapping on glass and footsteps on the roof until finally confronting the smiling intruder with a shotgun. Aiden and friends found a naked, scratched man inside the cabin, standing before the refrigerator as if he didn't understand what it was. You have 15 seconds to understand that some predators don't invade immediately. They study, test, wait until you drop your guard completely. Liam Parker was 12 when parents finally agreed to leave him alone for the first time, decision representing milestone of trust and maturity he campaigned for months. Anna and Mark Parker had anniversary dinner for close friends, event planned for weeks that coincided with Sister Sophie being at school camp, creating rare opportunity for Liam to demonstrate he could manage a few hours without supervision in this delivery driver lured a child scenario. Instructions were extensive, doors locked, don't open for strangers, emergency numbers on fridge, neighbors alerted to stay vigilant, parent available by phone anytime. Liam agreed to everything, too anxious to finally have house to himself to question protocols that seemed excessive for a quiet suburb where violent crime was abstract concept from news about other cities. Parents left at 6:30 p.m., leaving Liam with frozen dinner and permission to watch TV until 10 p.m. before sleeping. He enjoyed freedom watching programs normally vetoed, feeling adult through minor transgression parents probably expected and would tolerate. Around 8 p.m., hunger overcame frozen dinner appeal, and he decided to use money parents left to order pizza from Johnny's, local pizzeria family frequented regularly. Order was simple: large pepperoni pizza, delivery in 30 minutes per standard promise. When doorbell rang at 8:35 p.m., Liam checked through peephole before opening, delivery driver wearing Johnny's uniform, thermal bag in hand, appearance matching expectations about pizzeria workers. He opened door with chain still engaged initially, then removed it completely to accept pizza and pay with cash parent had left. The delivery driver was man around 30 with long beard and pizzeria cap pulled low over eyes. He delivered pizza with professional smile, waited while Liam counted money for payment and tip. But then, instead of simply accepting payment and leaving, he leaned slightly forward, looking past Liam into house interior visibly empty of other occupants. "Are you home alone?" The question came casually, friendly tone that could be interpreted as polite conversation if not for fact that strange adult had no legitimate reason to ask about child supervision status. Liam felt immediate discomfort, primitive instinct alerting that question crossed invisible line between appropriate service interaction and something more sinister. "No," Liam lied quickly. "My parents are coming back in a few minutes. They just went to pick up my sister." The lie emerged with conviction born from sudden fear, adding details that should make it more credible. Delivery driver maintained smile, but his eyes stayed on Liam for a moment longer than comfortable, assessing response truthfulness through body language and vocal hesitation. Right, he said finally, accepting money and backing from door. "Enjoy the pizza." He returned the car, dark sedan without Johnny's logo or indication it was a delivery vehicle, and departed slowly, as if unhurried or perhaps memorizing neighborhood details for future reference Liam didn't want to imagine. Liam closed and locked door, suddenly aware of house's emptiness in a way he hadn't been before encounter. The pizza sat on kitchen counter, but appetite had vanished, replaced by unease that made him check all door locks and window latches despite knowing parents had secured everything before leaving. He called Anna immediately, explaining what happened while trying not to sound panicked. Anna reassured Liam that delivery drivers sometimes made awkward small talk, that his response had been perfect, that he should just relax and enjoy evening. But she stayed on phone for 20 minutes, talking about nothing important while sensing his fear beneath brave facade. When call ended, Liam turned on every light downstairs, eliminating shadows where imagination could populate threats. Hours passed without incident. Liam watched TV with volume lower than normal, unconsciously listening for sounds that would indicate presence beyond what should be empty suburban night. By 11 p.m., he was tired enough that fear had dulled into background anxiety manageable through rationalization about overreaction to innocent if awkward interaction. Then doorbell rang. Not gentle press, but sustained ring like someone holding button. Urgent sound that violated nighttime social protocols about appropriate visiting hours. Liam froze on couch, staring at door while mind calculated options. Parents weren't expected until after midnight. Neighbors wouldn't ring bell this late. Legitimate visitors would call first. He crept to peephole, seeing distorted figure on porch illuminated by exterior light. Male, similar build to pizza delivery driver, but face obscured by cap pulled lower. The man rang bell again, then knocked, then called out, "Hello? I need to use your phone. My car broke down. Cell's dead. Just need to make one call." The voice was familiar. Same delivery driver from earlier. But story didn't make sense. Why return here specifically? Suburb had houses on both sides. Why choose one where he knew child were home alone? Liam backed away from door without responding, climbing stairs to parents' bedroom where landline phone sat on nightstand. He called Anna with shaking hands. She answered on first ring. "Liam, what's wrong?" He whispered explanation while delivery driver continued knocking downstairs, alternating between bell rings and door pounds that suggested increasing frustration with lack of response. Anna's voice went sharp with fear. "Don't open that door. I'm calling 911 right now. Your father's getting in car. Keep this line open." Through phone, Liam could hear Mark in background demanding keys while Anna spoke to 911 dispatcher with practiced calm that belied her terror. Downstairs, the knocking stopped. Liam held breath, listening to silence that felt worse than noise. Summer heat had required open windows for air circulation since house lacked central AC, and through those openings Liam heard gate latch click open, side gate that led to backyard. "Mom, he's going around back," Liam whispered. Anna relayed this to dispatcher while Mark's voice grew distant, indicating he'd already left house and was driving toward home that felt impossibly far away despite being only 15 minutes under normal conditions. Liam heard footsteps on back deck, tried creaking under weight as someone crossed wooden surface. Then came sound that stopped his heart. Back door handle turning, testing lock that was engaged but felt inadequate against determined entry. The door rattled in frame as pressure increased, then stopped. Footsteps moved along house exterior, testing ground floor windows that were locked but might yield to leverage or breaking glass. Liam moved to parents' bedroom, closing and locking door that felt like paper barrier against intruder who'd already demonstrated willingness to test every entry point. He pushed dresser against door with strength born from adrenaline, creating barricade that would at least make noise if breached, alerting him to final defense failure. Anna's voice came through phone receiver he dropped on bed. "Liam, talk to me. What's happening?" He grabbed phone, his trying windows. "I'm locked in your room. Where are the police?" Her voice cracked. "They are 3 minutes away. Your father's 2 minutes. Just stay quiet, stay hidden." But then came sound from downstairs that confirmed worse fear. Door opening. Not breaking, not forced entry, but smooth swing of door that shouldn't be accessible from outside. Liam realized with horror that back door's sliding glass panel must have been opened for ventilation, secured only by a flimsy lock that offered no resistance to determined manipulation. Footsteps entered kitchen, slow and deliberate, moving through first floor with confidence suggesting familiarity with layout. They paused at bottom of stairs, and Liam could imagine intruder looking up towards second floor where bedroom lights betrayed his location despite attempted hiding. The stairs creaked under ascending weight. Liam pressed against far wall, phone clutched in one hand while other grabbed baseball bat from Mark's closet, weapon that felt inadequate but better than nothing against adult intruder whose intentions were now undeniably malicious. Footsteps reached landing, moved along hallway toward parents' room where Liam had barricaded himself. They stopped outside door. Handle turned slowly, testing lock that held firm. Then came soft knocking, not aggressive, almost polite, creating cognitive dissonance between sound and situation that made fears spike higher. No voice accompanied knocking. No demands. No explanations. Just patient testing a barrier while Liam held breath and gripped bat with white-knuckled hands. The silence felt more threatening than shouting would have, suggesting intruder wasn't angry but methodical, working through problem of locked door with calculation rather than emotion. Then footsteps retreated. Back down hallway, downstairs, through first floor toward back of house where entry had been gained. Liam heard sliding glass door opening fully. Footsteps on deck, then silence that suggested departure but might indicate repositioning for different approach. Sirens cut through night air. Multiple vehicles from sound of overlapping wails. Police response that had taken 7 minutes feeling eternal, but arriving before intruder had breached bedroom door. Liam heard shout from downstairs. Police? Show yourself. House is surrounded. Officers cleared room systematically. Finding back door standing wide open with screen pushed aside, explaining entry method that hadn't required breaking glass or forcing locks. They found Liam still barricaded in bedroom, bat raised in trembling hands, taking minutes to convince him it was safe to open door. Mark arrived as officers were documenting scene, bursting through front door with panic that turned to relief seeing Liam unharmed. They embraced while Anna arrived minutes later, entire family reuniting in bedroom that had almost become crime scene if police response had been minutes slower or intruder had been more aggressive in breaching locked door. Next morning, after sleepless night interrupted by police interviews and statements, Mark drove to Johnny's with singular purpose, identifying delivery driver who terrorized his son. He brought photo Liam had described in detail to sketch artist, long beard, specific cap style, approximate age, and build. The manager, elderly Italian man who'd run pizzeria for 30 years, examined description with growing concern. We don't have driver matching that description, he said carefully. Our delivery staff is 3 people, 2 teenagers and 1 woman in her 50s. None have beards, none drive dark sedans. All vehicles are marked with our logo. He showed employee photos, delivery vehicle registrations, scheduled documentation proving none matched intruder's description. Mark felt reality shifting beneath him. But my son ordered from your number, your address. The man wore your uniform, delivered pizza in your box. Manager shook head. Someone is impersonating our drivers. This is identity theft, fraud, possibly worse. I'm calling police immediately. Investigation revealed disturbing pattern. Phone number Liam had called was 1 digit different from Johnny's actual number. Subtle change that wouldn't be noticed by someone calling from memory rather than checking carefully. The number traced a burner phone purchase with cash weeks earlier, suggesting premeditation rather than opportunistic crime. The uniform was store-bought polo shirt similar to Johnny's actual uniforms, but lacking official embroidery and logo placement that employees wore. The pizza box was authentic, stolen from Johnny's dumpster where empty boxes were discarded after inventory, giving operation veneer of legitimacy that would fool child or inattentive adult. Police theorized delivery driver was actually scout for burglary ring, using fake delivery to assess homes for vulnerable targets. Children alone, valuables visible, easy entry points. The return visit had been either attempt to gain entry while Liam was alone or intimidation tactic to frighten family into not reporting first incident. But no arrests were made. Security footage from neighbors showed dark sedan without plates, driver whose face was obscured by cap and strategic positioning. No forensic evidence had seen beyond footprints too common to trace. The intruder had been careful, professional, leaving nothing that would enable identification beyond Liam's description that matched thousands of men. Families' trust in home security and delivery services was permanently damaged. They changed all locks, installed cameras, joined neighborhood watch program that hadn't existed before. Liam required months of therapy to sleep alone again. His bedroom door now equipped with lock and security bar that gave illusion of control over a situation where he'd been fundamentally powerless. They never ordered from Johnny's again despite managers' profuse apologies and offers of free meals for life. The association was too strong, trauma too deep, even though pizzeria itself had been victim of identity theft rather than participant in attack. Some violations create permanent shifts in behavior that logic cannot override through reassurance about actual versus perceived threat. Evan Cole was 17 and living in remote Idaho house with parents Derek and Laura, property chosen specifically for isolation that offered privacy and nature access that compensated for distance from urban conveniences. Nearest neighbor lived mile away, visible only as distant lights through dense trees that surrounded property on 3 sides while 4th open to mountain vista. Friday evening, girlfriend Maya had visited for dinner an evening that stretched past her curfew, requiring apologetic departure around 11 p.m. Evan walked her to car parked in gravel drive, enjoying last minutes together before a week of school separated them. They kissed goodbye, her taillights disappearing down long driveway toward main road that was itself 10 minutes from actual civilization. Evan returned to house feeling content but vaguely uneasy in a way he couldn't articulate, attributing sensation to letdown after good evening ending too soon. Parents were already in bed, trusting 17-year-old to lock up and turn off lights before retiring to his own room on house's second floor. He moved through first floor, checking door locks with unusual thoroughness, turning off lamps while leaving on exterior lights that illuminated immediate perimeter against forest darkness that seemed to press against windows. The living room's floor-to-ceiling glass panels provided daytime views, but at night became mirrors reflecting interior while making outside impenetrable to observation. Evan reached for living room lamp switch when movement outside caught attention. Not dramatic motion, but subtle shift in darkness beyond glass that suggested shape, moving through shadows at edge of light's reach. He paused, staring into night while eyes adjusted to distinguish between actual movement and paranoid projection of fear onto innocent darkness. Then figure stepped into light. Man, approximately 40 years old, wearing tattered clothes that suggested homelessness or extreme poverty. But most disturbing was expression. Smile too wide, too fixed, suggesting either profound mental illness or deliberate psychological warfare designed to create maximum discomfort. He held hunting knife in right hand, large blade catching light as he raised it slowly to press flat against glass. The knife dragged downward, creating screech of metal on glass that Evan felt in teeth, sound designed to penetrate house and announce presence with maximum intimidation. But figure made no attempt to enter, didn't test door handles or try breaking glass that would shatter easily under determined assault. Just stood there, smiling, dragging knife in slow rhythmic motion while maintaining eye contact with Evan frozen on house's interior side. Evan stumbled backward, shouting for parents while keeping eyes on figure who continued performance without reaction to alarm his presence had triggered. Derek reached living room seconds later, following Evan's pointed finger toward glass where figure remained visible, still smiling, still dragging knife in hypnotic pattern. "Call 911, Derek ordered, grabbing shotgun from closet where it was stored, loaded despite Laura's objections about household weapons. He moved to glass, positioning himself between intruder and family while maintaining distance that would prevent sudden grab if glass broke. "Get away from my house," he shouted, voice carrying authority that should trigger retreat. But figure just smiled wider, pressed face against glass so features distorted into grotesque mask, then stepped backward into darkness. Derek illuminated exterior with floodlights, revealing empty yard and forest edge where intruder had simply vanished into trees dense enough to swallow human presence completely within steps of light's reach. Police arrived 20 minutes later, for officers responding to home invasion call in rural area where backup was scarce and distances required, treating every call as potentially lethal. They searched perimeter with flashlights and thermal imaging, finding no traces of intruder despite soft ground that should preserve footprints from someone standing at glass minutes earlier. Maybe he was barefoot, Officer Kendrick suggested. Lighter footfall, less impression. But even barefoot movement should leave some evidence, and forest floor beyond lawn showed no disturbed leaves or broken branches that human passage would create. The intruder had either been extraordinarily careful about not leaving traces, or something about situation didn't align with physical laws requiring cause and effect relationship between presence and evidence. Officers filed report, promised increased patrols, suggested installing security cameras and motion lights that would document future incidents. But their expression suggested skepticism about story, possibility that teenage boy and father had misinterpreted shadows or animal movement into human threat that investigation couldn't verify through physical evidence. That skepticism evaporated during following weeks when incidents multiplied despite security measures. 3 nights after first encounter, Evan woke to tapping on bedroom window, second floor window that should require ladder or exceptional climbing ability to access. The tapping was metallic, rhythmic, same pattern as knife on glass from earlier encounter. He looked but saw nothing beyond window that opened on same forest-facing side where first encounter had occurred. Yet tapping continued, source invisible despite moonlight that should reveal figure if one existed at window level. He recorded sound on phone, documenting evidence that police had requested but creating audio that would haunt him during replays that turned familiar tapping into proof of ongoing stalking. 2 weeks later, footsteps on roof woke entire family. Not animals scurrying, but deliberate walking. Boot-heavy impacts that cross roof from one side to other above bedrooms where family tried sleeping through harassment that had become nightly occurrence. Derek went outside with shotgun and spotlight, illuminating roof steep pitch where no human should be able to walk safely. Empty. No footprints in morning despite dew that should capture impressions. No ladder leaning against house despite impossibility of reaching roof without one. No explanation that satisfied physical requirements for sounds they'd all heard clearly enough to agree on direction and weight. Winter brought snow that should finally provide irrefutable evidence. Evan stayed home alone Saturday while parents visited Laura's sister 2 hours away, leaving him with shotgun, cell phone, and Rottweiler Rex who'd been trained for protection despite generally gentle disposition. Around 2 a.m., Evan heard footsteps in snow outside, crunching through fresh powder that had fallen during the evening. He looked through window, seeing nothing in darkness beyond exterior lights. But footsteps continued, circling house in pattern that suggested systematic perimeter check. Rex growled deep in throat, hackles raised, focus on sounds that confirmed Evan's senses weren't fabricating threat from innocent environmental noises. Then came knocking, slow, deliberate, on front door that faced driveway leading to main road. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more knocks, pattern repeating with patience, suggesting whoever stood outside had no urgency and infinite time to wait for a response that would never come. Dawn revealed what darkness had concealed, footprints circling entire house, not just approaching from forest, but complete perimeter coverage showing someone had walked past every window, stood at each entry point, methodically documented all aspects of house's exterior layout. The prints were human, boot-sized, pressed deep into snow by weight that suggested adult male. Most disturbing, prints stopped at each window where they'd stood long enough to create compressed area in snow, suggesting prolonged observation periods while families slept unaware on windows' interior side. At Evan's window specifically, prints showed someone had stood for extended time, possibly the entire duration of roof walking sound from weeks earlier. The prints led away from house toward forest, disappearing into tree cover where tracking became impossible. Police photographed evidence, measured boot size, followed trail until it vanished. Detective Morrison, who'd taken over case after repeated incidents, was finally convinced. You have a stalker, probably homeless individual who fixated on your isolation and sees your property as his territory. We'll increase patrols, but realistically we can't guard you 24/7. Evan spent following week sleeping little, jumping at every sound, maintaining shotgun within reach despite parents' renewed concerns about weapon accessibility. The harassment had evolved from frightening to dangerous, from observer to potential assailant, requiring response that acknowledged genuine threat rather than continued hope that ignoring stalker would make him lose interest. 2 nights later, tapping returned. Now familiar sound of metal on glass, coming from first floor living room where original encounter had occurred. Evan was alone, parents a community meeting about increasing crime in rural areas that their case had partly inspired. Rex was with him, alert and growling at sounds that confirmed threat wasn't imagination. Evan made decision that would either end harassment or escalate situation beyond control. He grabbed shotgun, chambered round with distinctive racking sound designed to communicate readiness, and moved to second floor deck that overlooked backyard where tapping originated. He opened deck door, stepping into cold night air while aiming at ground near glass where tapping continued. Floodlights activated, illuminating entire backyard and forest edge in sudden brilliance that eliminated shadows and concealment. And there he stood, same figure from months earlier, same smile fixed on face that showed no surprise at lights or weapon, same knife dragging across glass in patient rhythm that hadn't changed despite escalation on Evan's side. "This is your last warning," Evan shouted, voice steadier than he felt. "Leave my property or I shoot." Figure tilted head, smile widening impossibly further, maintaining eye contact while continuing knife's motion. Evan aimed at sky and fired warning shot, boom echoing through forest with authority that should trigger flight response in anyone sane. Figure stopped smiling, lowered knife, and began walking backward, facing Evan throughout retreat, not turning to run but maintaining visual contact while receding into tree line. His eyes reflected floodlights like animals would, creating illusion that made Evan question whether Figure was entirely human or something else wearing human shape. When Figure reached trees, he paused at darkness boundary, raised knife in salute. then stepped back and vanished completely, absorbed by shadows that seemed to accept him as native presence rather than intruder. Evan should have stayed on deck, should have maintained defensive position with weapon and lights, but rage at months of harassment overrode caution. He descended deck stays, shotgun still in hand, and released Rex from leash that normally limited his roaming to property boundaries through buried wire system. "Get him!" Evan commanded, pointing toward trees where figure had disappeared. Rex didn't hesitate, launching into darkness with speed and aggression that demonstrated protective training overriding gentle daily temperament. His barking echoed through forest, savage sound designed to intimidate and chase, fading as he pursued target deeper into wilderness. Evan waited on deck, listening to Rex's distant barking, hoping to hear sounds of confrontation that would indicate Stalker cornered and detained by a 100-pound attack dog. But barking continued moving away, suggesting chase rather than capture, figure fleeing with speed that kept him ahead of canine pursuit. 20 minutes later, Rex returned alone, panting and bleeding from scratches that branches had inflicted during forest chase. He hadn't caught anyone, but his presence at property boundary would now be established. Stalker knew that future approaches would trigger dog response that could inflict serious injuries beyond psychological intimidation that had characterized harassment until tonight. That was last time Evan saw the Smiler, nickname family had given to figure whose expression haunted memory months after encounters ceased. Whether warning shot, dog attack, or simple luck had ended harassment remained uncertain. But nightly tapping stopped, footprints no longer circled house after snowfalls, roof remained silent above sleeping family. Yet security measures stayed in place. Cameras recorded empty yards, motion lights activated for deer and raccoons. Shotgun remained loaded in bedroom closet despite Laura's continued discomfort with weapon presence. Because absence of threat wasn't proof of safety, just temporary reprieve that could end any night when Smiler decided that forest territory extended to house that had become his obsession. Evan graduated high school and left for college out of state, partly from normal educational progression, but also from desire to escape property that had become prison through sustained harassment. His bedroom window still faced forest where Smiler had presumably lived and might still live, watching house with patience that measured time in seasons rather than days. Family never learned who he was or why he targeted their isolation for fixation that combined performance and menace without clear objective beyond creating fear. Police investigation never identified him. Wilderness providing shelter for those who chose invisibility over social integration, mental illness, or deliberate lifestyle creating humans who existed beyond documentation and accountability. Aiden Brooks organized spring break cabin rental with friends from college sophomore year, seeking affordable escape that Airbnb advertised as rustic charm but actually meant barely maintained structure in South Carolina woods. 6 of them, Matt Rivera, Chris Lang, Tyler Cho, Jess Patel, Sarah Monroe, and Aiden, split costs that was suspiciously low even for college budget constraints. Proprietor Mr. Harlan met them at property entrance, elderly man with suspicious eyes and manner suggesting he'd rather not be renting to college students but needed income enough to tolerate risks they represented. He provided keys with minimal instruction about cabin operations, then added warning that seemed both sincere and deliberately vague. Don't go wandering in woods, especially at night. Old wells and sinkholes from mining days, plus things left behind you don't want to find. Stay on property. Use main path to lake if you want swimming. Ignore any sound from forest after dark. The warning felt scripted, delivered with tone suggesting he'd given it before without expectation it would be heeded. Cabin was worse than photos suggested. Decay hiding behind angles that promotional images had carefully avoided. Furniture smelled of mildew. Plumbing was temperamental. Heating system created more noise than warmth. But location was beautiful if isolated, dense forest providing privacy while nearby lake offered recreation that made property deficiencies tolerable for week-long stay. First night passed peacefully, group drinking beer and playing cards until exhaustion sent them to bedrooms that cold forced them to double up into shared body heat against inadequate heating. Aiden and Matt took room with view facing deepest forest, window that showed nothing but darkness despite moon that should provide some ambient illumination. Around 4:15 a.m., Aiden woke to tapping on window. Not tree branch. Deliberate, rhythmic finger taps on glass that showed intentionality rather than environmental accident. He opened eyes, focusing on window where tap 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 continued with patience suggesting someone willing to maintain pattern until attention was gained. Face pressed against glass. Pale, gaunt, with straggly hair and eyes too wide for normal human expression. Shirtless despite near-freezing temperature, skin showing ribs and collarbones with prominence suggesting malnutrition or deliberate weight loss. Mouth hung slightly open, breath fogging glass, while eyes remained fixed on Aiden with intensity that communicated awareness rather than vacant staring. Aiden sat up, movement waking Matt, who followed his gaze to window where face remained visible, unmoving except for slow blinking that proved figure was living human rather than hallucination or prop. "What the fuck?" Matt whispered, reaching for phone to use flashlight while Aiden grabbed nearest object that could serve as weapon, camping flashlight heavy enough to work as club. When porch light activated through switch near door, figure vanished instantly. No stepping back, no turning to run, just absence where presence had been moment before. They rushed to window, looking down at ground where figure should be visible retreating, finding empty space and unbroken shadows. Morning brought search for footprints or evidence of nighttime visitor. They found barefoot impressions in soft ground surrounding cabin, circling entire perimeter and stopping at each window. Prints were human-sized, pressed deep by weight despite cold that should have made barefoot forest walking impossible. Most disturbing, prints stopped at bathroom window where Sarah had showered before bed, ground showing extended stay suggesting observer had watched through steamed glass without her awareness. The violation was comprehensive, systematic, performed by someone who'd studied cabin layout and occupant habits during previous reconnaissance. They attempted security improvements, barricading doors, checking window locks, establishing what shifts through night. But exhaustion and alcohol consumption made sustained vigilance impossible for college students who'd expected relaxing vacation rather than defensive siege against forest intruder with unknown capabilities and motivations. Night 2 brought escalation. At 3:30 a.m., Matt woke to movement in cabin's open layout where kitchen and living area shared space with minimal partition. Someone stood at refrigerator, backlit by interior light, body completely naked and covered in scratches that showed dark against pale skin. It was same man from window, now inside through entry method they hadn't secured despite afternoon security efforts. He stood motionless before open refrigerator, staring at content with expression suggesting confusion about appliance's purpose. His back showed extensive scratching, parallel lines that could be self-inflicted or from forest travel through heavy brush. Matt's shout woke everyone. Lights activating throughout cabin as 6 college students emerged from bedrooms to confront intruder who turned slowly, showing front that was equally scratched and displaying genitals without shame or awareness that nudity was socially inappropriate. His expression remained blank, not threatening but somehow worse for lack of human emotion that should accompany breaking and entering. Then he was gone. Not running, not visible moving toward door, just absence where presence had been. They found back doors standing open, unlocked despite Tyler's claim he'd secured it before bed. No forced entry, no broken locks, just door that opened easily from outside suggesting someone had key or lock was defective in way that rendered security measures useless. 20 minutes later they were packed and driving away, abandoning remaining days of rental for safety of civilization. At nearest diner they called sheriff's office, speaking with Deputy Keener, who listened with expression suggesting he'd heard similar stories before and didn't consider them emergency requiring immediate investigation. Probably squatters living in those woods, he said dismissively. Highland property borders state forests that attract homeless and mentally ill who want isolation. They sometimes enter cabins when they are rented, looking for food or just confused about boundaries. His tone suggested college students were overreacting to harmless encounter. But Keener's knowledge of squatters and casual mention of previous incidents suggested this was known pattern that owner hadn't disclosed during rental process. Within days, cabin listing disappeared from Airbnb and other platforms, removed without explanation or refund of deposit Aiden had paid. Harlan never responded to calls or messages seeking explanation or compensation. Local authorities showed no interest in investigating squatter population that apparently terrorized renters regularly enough to be known issue but not serious enough to require intervention beyond dismissive acknowledgement. Aiden's group never returned to South Carolina, their spring break memory permanently contaminated by pale figure at window and naked intruder standing at refrigerator with scratched body and absent expression that suggested something broken in a way that made him more disturbing than deliberately threatening person would have been. Sometimes human presence is most frightening when it lacks humanity, when eyes look without understanding and body moves without purpose beyond existing in spaces it shouldn't occupy.